and I had a couple, almost 3 weeks together, reflecting on Bob and Judy, and he was a great teacher, and he did teach me a few things about public speaking. He taught us a lot about life and working on houses, being involved in music, sports, and sporting. He brought us to Colorado, Wyoming about 12 years in a row for downhill skiing. And he told me at the end of that 12 years, he's like, that was just a crazy idea. We never could have afforded that. We never had the money. But he said, I thought it was important that I take you all skiing. So he thought it was important. At one point, he had 4 kids in college at the same time. And he told me at my freshman year, he's like, we can't afford this. This is crazy. Then he thought about it. He said, but I think it is important. So he kept it going somehow. Just always, he called it fingernails on a cliff face financially. We never had the money that we should have had to do the things we were doing. So he thought it was important. And he had us all meet piano lessons, guitar lessons, trumpet lessons, drum lessons, hockey, soccer, anything you could think of, he would support you. And he said, we can't afford all of this. Rob was sailing at Hawaii. There's boats everywhere. But he's like, I thought it was important. So he would teach me in public speaking, you need a theme. Those were 3 things he thought was important. At a much younger age, I learned about the power of repetition in public speaking. He came home in a business suit from the bank. We were all probably under the age of 12. We're all lying around, maybe watching cartoons, which he did not. You did not want to have him catch you watching cartoons, because that meant you're not really working on anything. I think he had a phrase for that. Are you improving your mind? That was his joke if we were watching cartoons. So he came home one night. We're all lying on the couches watching, maybe, hopefully not cartoons. He got really mad. And he said, here's a mess over here. Can I swear? Fuck it, let the old man clean it up. Then there was another mess in another corner, and we're all getting scared. And he said, fuck it, let the old man clean it up. Everything, every mess, let the old man clean it up. But he delivered in a very colorful speech. I might have been 5, I'll never forget. He was teaching the power of repetition in public speaking. Very powerful, very powerful. So let's talk about sports very briefly. My brothers will probably cover sailing. I want to cover skating. And this leads me to the next cycle of repetitive. A lot of the things my dad tried to get me interested in at an early age would make me cry. So then I may have learned no pain, no gain. But at our earliest hockey games in Cottagewood, it was very cold. Little kids, there was mites, then squirts, then peewees. Pretty funny names they still use today. And we play one period and we're all in the Cottagewood warming house in tears. Like, why are we doing this? This is terrible. Then Bob came over, my feet were freezing. And he's like, take your skates off. He put bread bags, 1 on each foot. So, okay, what's this about? So then I go out second period. The feet are so warm and toasty and sweaty. And he knew how to beat the elements. So just a couple of years ago, I was playing 15 below with a bunch of guys. One period, totally frozen. We're in a nice warming house. I fumble around, I find 2 bread bags. I get them on. I'm 54 years old. The next 2 hours, 15 below, my feet were sweating, toasty warm. It was a beautiful night, as long as you kept your feet warm. So I learned that from Bob. Sailing briefly, I was the fourth, the youngest, and I did not really want to sail much. It's cold, windy, wet. It's a lot of work. I want to play baseball. So I cried a little bit early sailing. Bob kept me going. But this reminds me, next skiing. Bob took us skiing all those years. And our first year was Vail, which was so beautiful. Early 80s, maybe late 70s, just wonderful. And the first day, the three brothers were kind of advanced skiers. I was just starting. The first couple times, they brought me to warm-ups a couple times, Buck Hill, and I was crying again. I don't want to do this. So day one at Vail, sunny day, back bowls, if anybody knows the back bowls of Vail. And the three brothers, advanced athletes, advanced skiers, they immediately abandoned me. Somehow, I have no idea, thousands of people on this mountain, we all meet up again, parents, four brothers. And Bob had a saying, if you did something bad to the team, to the family, he told the three brothers, if you ever abandon David again like that, I will cut your livers out. So that was one of his things. You don't want him to say that. He never did it, but he threatened it. So the next day I got enrolled in the Vail Ski School, and it was wonderful. By the end of the week, I was pounding moguls with my brothers. Vail Ski School has to be the best in the world, was at that time. So.
We're ready, Dave.
Okay.
So
I'd like to invite more from you later.
Rick and Rob up to just say welcome everyone. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we're going to play what Dad would have loved, and that's a polka. So we'll have a short musical interlude.
So on this song, we really grew up around this music of our dads a lot. And just today was the first time I saw the words to this song.
Well, let me try.
So it's kind of fun to see what they're saying in German. And our dad loved the Bavarian polka waltz. He was in a great band. All the guys at the Star Tribune, he found all the guys that played instruments at a high level, and they made the Better Than Nothing Dirt Band. Bob was concertina, and he loved this song. They used to be playing concertina and singing at the same time, which was a big deal. Here we go.
Keep talking, Dave. We have another sound glitch.
We'll have a concertina song very shortly. So in late 70s, I went with my dad to New Ulm, Minnesota, which is Germantown, America. And Bob, imagine about 78, Dad's writing a check for, I think, $6,000 for a concertina. Jeweled inlay, I mean, that's a big deal back in that time. Again, couldn't afford it, but he thought it was important.
Which one?
So this thing is gorgeous. You're going to see a guy playing a similar concertina. Very difficult instrument. You have to do all the keys blind because you can't see them, and you're constantly in and out of the air. It's no small feat. A few nights over the decades, we practice a lot. I won him a few times. Incredibly frustrated. He said this instrument makes no sense. There's no logic. It's like Sanskrit. So we have those nights of frustration, but relentless practice.
would like David,
Yeah.
David,
Yes, sir.
Minneapolis was a lot different than it is now. It was a town of immigrants, German, Scandinavian, and there was polka music on the radio all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the songs the band wrote, that mostly they covered songs, but they did write a song. It was a collage, like Dick said, of Scandinavian and German. So the big number they wrote, famous still, Scandinavian Hot Shot. So it was, okay. You get,
So, well,
you just,
and Dave, we're gonna play Wild Irish Rose just for a
let
second.
that finish, because you didn't hear the yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Dad used to love. Sure. This proceeds, Rob, or? So the next song is very, very, very special to our dad, and you could hear him playing this one alone sometimes with the band. And as we got to
How
know
about the
more about,
concertina?
yeah. So here is one of these. This would be worth possibly $20,000 today, and he's gonna play one of his.
I'll go to a short clip of Dad playing.
So that was probably his number one song he would play, and he loved that song. Can still hear his fingers bouncing in and out like that. That's a little bit of work. That's Neville Mariner, who was in town to direct the Minnesota Symphony, big-time, world-renowned conductor. For that night, they invited him to conduct their little band. Now we have Robert Jr.
Thank you all for being here. You know, Dad and Mom had an incredible marriage. Dad passed 63 days after Mom, and that's after 63 years of marriage, and what a marriage it was. So I'm going to take a look or talk a little bit about the sailing aspect of our family. You know, Dad was a man of many talents, loved many different things, very diverse as you can see from his music, but really one of his favorite things to do was to go sailing and sailboat racing. And I remember my first time sailing, you know, we watched Dad and the A-boat crew sail in and out from the dock, you know, a bunch of times. And then one morning it was a light wind and they're getting ready for the race. And Dad says, "Hey, Robbie, you want to come along on the race with us?" And I looked, "Really?" It's like, "Yeah, I'll go." So off we went, off to the race course. And Dad said, "Okay, here's the plan. When I tell you, you have to go underneath the deck and hold on to this lattice work, which are wood beams supporting the deck." And he said, "Don't come out of there until I tell you it's okay." I said, "Okay, I could do that." So every time there was a maneuver where they tacked or jagged, I would go under there. And I remember vividly when the spinnaker came down, there were a bunch of guys shouting and talking and all excited. And all of a sudden, the big, huge spinnaker comes into the cockpit, and it was chaos and mayhem. But I was watching it and fascinating. I was fascinated by it. And also, when we got going again, and Dad would say, "Okay, you can come out and you can look." And looking around and pretty amazed by it all. And then we finished the race, and we're sailing in. And, you know, again, I was 4 years old. And Dad said, "Would you like to steer the boat, Robbie?" I said, "Yeah, I would like to." So I got back there and I was steering with all these guys looking at me, and I'm in control. And at that moment, I was hooked on sailing. And I have been ever since, as well as my brothers. We all love it. And it was Dad that got us started, got us into it. So after these A-boat races, the boys' job was to go inside the boat with sponges and sponge out the ribs, because there's ribs every 6 inches, and they held water. And so we get way up in the bow and with the sponge in a bucket and sponged it all out. And then the huge spinnaker got laid out on the line, and our job was to drive the spinnaker. And so we would get underneath the spinnaker and run around like Casper the Ghost. And we just had a wonderful time doing that, laughing, and we were doing our job. And then, of course, we would fetch beers for the crew out of the old time fridge when they wanted, and very memorable. So one of my dad's big goals was to win the A-boat inland. And, you know, to do this takes a tremendous amount of work and great crew, and a little bit of luck, and it took a lot of time. And my mom was looking at this time factor and was not really totally sure about it. And so Bob said, "Well, I'll tell you what, if we can win the A inland, I will hang up my hiking straps and I'll concentrate on the kids and you." And sure enough, they went to Green Lake, one of his favorite lakes to sail on, which was a beautiful place. And they did win the A inland, and he held true to his promise. And all of a sudden, we started our journey of youth sailing, which was quite a journey. So, you know, we started with sailing school, and then got into X boats. And just getting the X boats to the yacht club was an adventure with the putt-putt. And Mom would tow us in the putt-putt sometimes, which is, she was totally not comfortable doing, but she did it. And, you know, we all loved it and learned. And all of a sudden we went from X boats to M boats to C boats, to E boats and A boats. And every step of the way, you know, Mom and Dad were there to support us in every way. And they just loved to come out in the motorboat and watch us race. And, you know, after the race, Dad would always have a critique of critical moments of the race and what were you thinking, and it was great to talk to him and debrief, because, you know, he does have a very sharp eye, and once in a while he said, what the hell were you thinking there, if we made a mistake. And so we talked about it. And then Mom and Dad would also travel to regattas to watch us sail. So to many of the inland lake regattas, and they came to collegiate regattas, you know, where we were sailing, you know, for university. I was on the U of Hawaii sailing team. They came to some of those regattas. And then even when I made the U.S. National team, and we had a world championship in Italy, and they came to that. And, you know, they just loved to watch, but also they love the social part of it, the parties and meeting the sailors and the supporters and just everything about it. They just loved it. And we loved having them there.
Dave. Ready?
Yep. So
Finish up.
again, you know, another thing that Dad loved was ice boating, and he would bring us kids ice boating. That was so memorable. And one thing that happened was Brother Richard and Dad and Mom on the big A-boat ice boat, which is the biggest ice boat there is. There wasn't much wind, so Richard and Dad got out and they were pushing the boat to get it going, and Mom was in the boat. And all of a sudden a little gust of wind came up, and the boat started sailing and got away from Richard and Bob. And so Judy is on this huge boat sailing, and Richard says, head up, head up. And Bob says, head down, head down. And Judy looks back, and thank God the wind died again, so she didn't crash. But she was pregnant with me at the time, and I'm thinking that's where our love of sailing and adventure probably started with us kids. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. How many of you knew that Bob was actually a big softie at heart? He absolutely loved that rendition of such a beautiful song by
Louder.
Celine Dion. And Bob never followed much popular music, of course. He was old school. So some of our best bonding moments as father and son were spent listening to that song at Christmas time. And I got to describe to him Celine Dion and her greatness, and the great David Foster, who produced that song. Yeah, it would often bring him to tears, and really special at Christmas time. One time we had a Jewish guest in the house, and after the 13th time playing that song, he was just confused. He had to go out to the beach. Bob also, he loved the simple things in life, collecting seashells with Judy on Siesta Beach. He loved growing flowers, especially blue morning glories. He tried many, many times at the house in Linwood to grow these, fairly easy flowers, but he never installed gutters on the house. So every time it rained, that just washed the seeds away. And he loved collecting shells, and especially taking Judy to lunch, a late lunch, and they love to relax and the simple things in life. And of course, he loved Judy, the biggest softie of them all. I want to go back to Bob's retirement party in '97. His cohorts at the bank conceived it as a roast, and emceed by Bob Lertzema, who was, their marketing star for many years at the bank. And Lertzema, was just so good up on the stage, giving zingers about Bob's life and his career. And then Lertzema went on to extol the virtues of my brothers and all the great things they were doing. And he got to me and he said, well, he's just bewildered, as if I wasn't in the room. I was trying to get up the nerve, to come up to the stage after that. And he made me feel 2 inches tall. But it was a roast, so I got over it. And got up there and delivered my spiel and made Bob laugh really hard. And that's all I wanted to do. And I came up to Lertzema afterwards and I said, hey man, what's up with that? And I said, try to imagine if Bob Evans was your dad. And he's like, valid point. So Bob, yeah, rest in peace. You're a great dad. I love you.
And also, you can feel the water and the big sailing ships in the background. Beautiful. So I'll speak a little bit more, some quick stories. But before I do that, to any given funeral, you should give a shout upstairs. Dear God, however any of you think of God, Dad was fond of telling me on occasion, prayer is a lot like vitamins. You're not sure if it really works, but it's worth a try. So I think he did allow for an afterlife, and I asked him a few times, do you hope that you'll be with Judy in the afterlife? And he said yes. Simple answer. So back to my theme, Bob was a great teacher. I'll try to get through this quickly. When I first met my wife, Becky, I had one of the 6 family station wagons, but as the youngest, my station wagon was bruised and beaten badly. So right away, I told Dad, look, I've got an incredible lady here, Becky. I can't roll up in the beat up station wagon. This is not gonna work. He said, all right, let's go to Wayzata Chevrolet and let's get you a nice SUV. And okay, so we're off to look at SUVs. And I'd been working at the bank with him for 4 years and had saved a fair amount of money. And in the back of my mind, you know, I assume my dad's going to buy me the SUV. So it came down to, let's get this one. And he just, so I got out my checkbook. He's like, yep, this is how it works. So I bought my first car. And that leads to so he wanted me to know the value of hard work and money. He was not going to buy me that car. I did get this beautiful SUV, and I think Becky was dazzled with it. And it wasn't too much longer. We got married, and just after the wedding, we're going to be in Canada for our honeymoon. Could my best friend that was in the wedding borrow my SUV for a week? He's from Chicago. He'll be driving around northern Minnesota for a week. Yeah, I guess I don't see a problem with that. Bob had a serious lesson. No good deed goes unpunished. I never did see that SUV again. My buddy ran it dry of oil and abandoned the SUV in northern Minnesota. That was it. Never saw it again. So you would be reminded of Bob's lessons. That was no good deed goes unpunished. Bob was very fond of Murphy's Law. Most of you must know that. The brothers, I think it might have been Rich, sentimentally said, Bob and Judy, you should spend one more Christmas in Florida, 10 years into retirement. It'd be so beautiful, white Christmas. Okay, they agreed to come. There was quite a large snowstorm, and Bob backed his Cadillac into a large snowbank. If you choke the tailpipe with dense snow, it'll kill the catalytic converter on the Cadillac. So the car died. That was the end of that. It's Christmas Eve, maybe. It's hard to get service. Has anybody seen the Christmas Vacation, Chevy Chase? Raise your hand. So this is Christmas, white Christmas, and it was so cold, so stormy, the sewer line froze, so all the toilets stopped working. And Christmas Eve, Bob had to hire a company at double the normal rate. Our entire driveway was torn up. didn't matter because you couldn't drive the car, tore up the driveway. So it was getting eerily similar to the Griswold Christmas with sewer issues. And Bob said, we're not going to do this ever again. But it was a very comical comedy of errors. Bob and I was the one that was interested in banking and politics, and we would talk politics a lot. It was a spicy subject for us. And one day in Minneapolis, in a bookstore, my goodness, there's U.S. Senator Al Franken. Hi, Mr. Franken, Senator, it's nice to meet you. I was a big fan of yours when he was on Saturday Night Live. Minnesota had a habit of electing strange people. Jesse Ventura, ex-wrestler, Al Franken, ex-comedian. And so I told Bob I met Al Franken, the senator. Al's most famous character was Stuart Smalley. And when you get into the Stuart Smalley movie, you learn that Stuart's dad died working on the roof because the Smalley men always bring a 12-pack of beer onto the roof while they're working. And so the dad fell to his death. Well, how did Dad's dad die? They show another image, 12-pack of beer working on the roof. He fell to his death. And then I reminded Dad, when he was working on our chimney, house built in the 1890s, 80s, it had a 3-sided fireplace. It could heat 3 different rooms with one chimney. Well, Bob had to be up there patching this 100-plus-year-old chimney frequently. But most of you all know Bob could handle his drink pretty well, and I'd go up there with him. I'd hold the 6-pack, Budweiser, and never had any problem at all. So he did not fall. There's no way. He was good at that. Okay, Jeff, what's next?
Your song?
Okay, I'll wrap up his teaching. There's so much here. I knew I couldn't get it all down.
While you get ready to play, I'm gonna introduce the song.
Okay,
Little audible.
okay. My first job out of college, I was all prepped. Bob had been a great teacher my whole life. He taught all of us. I'm gonna teach sailing school. This is gonna be awesome. Bob had a way of putting his foot down on occasion. 4 years invested at the bank. He had a favorite phrase if you were stepping out of bounds. I'm gonna teach sailing school this summer. He said, bullshit. You're coming to the bank. So I went to the bank. I was so fit in college, hockey, soccer, tan, and fit. So I went into the sub basement of TCF Bank for that entire summer, sat in a chair, answered complaints. And the complaints and the fluorescent lighting, no sunlight, and I got worn down, got very worn down. My eyes got pinkish, reddish, like a rat that doesn't see the sun. I got thin and weak, no sunlight. But it was an important lesson, I guess. But later on, I would teach drums and then guitar, and finally I teach golf. Once golfing with him at Wayzata Country Club, great opportunity. And Dad, the pro of Wayzata, very famous guy, I'll finish here. Homer, his name was Homer. He always had an unlit cigar. Homer was at the table greeting the golfers for the tournament. I'm like, Dad, I think I want to work in golf. Dad said, bullshit. Homer, will you tell David that he wants to be on this side of the desk playing golf, not on that side of the desk working in golf? But I did end up working in golf as a teacher. And I just thank Dad for all the lessons that helped us help others. Okay, what do you got, Jeff?
So Dad was indeed a teacher, and one of the things he taught us is love of music. And it's only fitting that Dave is going to play a song that he just wrote. And the song is called love you too. And the story of how it was written was, in his final days, Dad was in hospice, and that was a godsend for many reasons, because he was comfortable. And as he began to fade, he lost ability to communicate, but he did have some final words. And David said to him, "I love you, Dad." And Dad's final words were, "I love you too." And that is the song.
Hello, this mic's not hot, Jeff.
On switch.
I got it on. Oh, check, there we go. So I've got the microphone sitting on a naval history book. Bob loved everything nautical his whole life. And Bob supported I owned and ran a music store for 25 years. And Bob was with me every step of the way. And occasionally I said, "This is not enough earnings, and this is too difficult." He said, "Do you love it?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Keep doing it. Keep going." And after a quarter century in small business, I thought many times, I wish maybe I had joined the Navy instead. Billy Joel has that Piano Man song, talking to Davy. He's still in the Navy and probably will be for life. So, but I guess I'm happy that I went into music and Dad supported me. And we got a song out of it I think he'll like. This was Bob's nylon guitar. They're pretty touchy in the humidity. Forgive me. Yeah.
Let it rip, Dave.
Because you love me, I'm yours. And I really hope that you can be proud of me. I love the way you love me, and I love all the things you do. And you know I'm gonna love you too. Because you help me and you care. And you always seem to see the best in me. Your style is so lovely, you grace everything you do. And you know I'm gonna love you too. Oh dear Dad, I'm missing you now. I'm wondering how to keep moving on. Your life is a song and I'm missing you now.
Oh, dear Dad, we miss you so much. We're missing your touch, and we love you so much. Your voice through a gust, you're always with us. Oh, can you please watch us from above? Can you please keep an eye out just for me? Oh, can you still feel all of our love? Stay with us for now, stay with us somehow. We honor you here and we know you are near. Oh, dear Dad, I miss you again, we miss you again, and we'll see you again. This is not the end, and we love you again. Oh, dear Dad, thank you again for being a best friend. Remember it when your laughter would mend, and I love you again. Oh, can you please watch us from above? Can you please shine down your love for me? Oh, please feel all of our love. Inside my heart I'm falling apart. Stay here somehow, stay with us for now. Because you have such a great big heart. And you give so beautifully. We love the way you love us, we love all the things you do. And you know we're gonna love you too. Because you sail now on the open sea. Because you sail now on the open sea. And your partner on the waist is Mama again. We love the way you love her, we love all the things you do. And you know we're gonna love you too. We're always gonna love you too.
Absolutely astounding, David. Well done. We're here to honor and remember Bob Evans. But that story is completely intertwined with our mom, Judy Evans. Here is a couple who accomplished literally everything they set out to do. I believe that's true. Their first goal was to have a family, and Dad wanted lots of boys. Mission accomplished, 4 boys. He wanted more, but she hung up the diapers. They wanted to have a comfortable big house with character, and they certainly achieved that with the house at Linwood Circle. Dad set out to build a great career so that we would have resources and comfort. He definitely achieved that. He started as a low-level marketing director, finished as president of the bank, built a fantastic career, and provided for his family. They set out to have a comfortable retirement, and they definitely did that, in part on Siesta Beach. After 17 years, Dad said, well, I think the time is up, the gig is up, it's gonna get pounded by a hurricane, and lo and behold, that came true. And they also wanted to have a long and mostly healthy life, and they did that as well. But Dad was a complex individual with many sides. I'm really glad that Ricky mentioned Dad's soft side, because it was there, but it was often not visible. What was visible was the hard side. Anyone remember Bob Evans' way of telling things like it is? He was good at that, and some of the most beloved phrases are recorded now, and I invite anyone to contribute to this list of what I'm calling Bob Evansisms. And one of the best ones came recently. Dad was graced by the caregiving of a few individuals, one of whom is here and several who are watching, I hope. And these women are gifted by many things of comfort. And so he became accustomed to being comforted by a woman's touch. Previous to that, it was my touch. And I think he liked having a woman's touch. And he said, well, God damn it, Jeffrey, you're doing it wrong. And I said, Dad, I'm sorry. I'm not as gentle as the female caregivers. I'm not gentle and sweet. I'm a man. And Dad said, add asshole to your list of attributes. Another recent story was one of the caregivers giving the Lord's Prayer over Dad. And at the end of the Lord's Prayer, Dad opened his eyes and he said, wake me up from this bad dream. And another one is a description of a typical workday at the bank. And Dad said, well, one of my most important functions is to negotiate bills downward. My job is to save money, earn money and save money. And so my workday begins with summoning my secretary and I say, all right, sit down, grab the list of invoices to be paid. And he described in great detail how, okay, this invoice, tell him I'm not paying until he reduces it by half. And the next one, tell him to fuck off. And the next one, and so on. And he was an incredibly powerful guy. If you were on the receiving end of Bob Evans' tongue lashing, or even just proving his point, it was a formidable force of nature. He was indeed. And one of a few more that I just have to share, to put out there in the universe. One of the favorite things was, tell them to pound sand up their asses. And recently we were waiting for food delivery and he said, the delivery is all smoke and mirrors. It's all bullshit. They're fucking lying. The food is lying in a bin somewhere. Let's add something else. They're assholes sitting in their kitchen picking their noses. And another favorite is anyone who spent time with Bob knew that he absolutely hated when the telephone rang. And when the phone would ring off and he'd say, tell him to fuck off. And so that's one of the things I will carry forward and remember about Dad. But the sentimental side was there, and one of my favorite things was following Dad around as a kid. He was gifted in so many ways, and one of those was working with his hands. Dad could fix anything except electrical. And even that, he was pretty talented, and we loved to follow him around, and our job was to bring him beers and to pass him tools, and we got to watch, and all of us now have the ability to fix stuff, thanks to Dad. But our legacy, I believe, is often we think of a legacy as defined by our career, by our relationships, by our achievements, by other measurements and milestones, but I believe that we're defined at the end by our energy. And Dad had an incredible energy. It was not always positive, but it was strong. He had one hell of a reserve of energy, and it was true to the last. He never gave up. He never complained. He was the strongest man, smartest man, the most gifted man I've ever known. And the final thing I'll say is about his relationships. Dad told me at an early age, several times, listen here, I'm going to tell you what's important in my life. And the most important thing to me is your mother. I'll do everything for her. And by God, he did. When she came home after being in rehab for a few months, he told her for the first time that I ever heard him say it, "I love you, and I'm glad you're here." And the second most important thing he told us was, "You boys, I'll do," he said, "I'll do anything for you to see you succeed and prosper and be happy and fulfilled." By God, he did that. So with that, I love you, Dad.
Before you leave, Jeff, I wanna, the last 3 weeks have been very powerful, reflecting with the brothers, and Jeff really led the way with remembering how Dad taught us things. And I wanted to ask you, Jeff, Bob had 2 main jobs, one during the work week and one during the weekend. Describe Bob's outfit during the work week.
Well, it was a suit and tie.
Suit and tie. And he looked like Cary Grant. Our mom looked like Grace Kelly. It was quite an experience having them as parents. And I wanted to mainly get, what did Bob wear on the weekend for work?
Jeans and the green sweatshirt.
So he was always ready on the weekends to go to war with Mother Nature, rain and wind and rot and mice. And it was a constant battle. And he would put those jeans on every weekend and keep this house standing. That almost got torn down. It was scheduled to be torn down a week after they bought it. But I thought of this little dedicated verse from Cat Stevens. "Oh, very young, what will you leave us this time? You're only dancing on this earth for a short while. And though your dreams may toss and turn you now, they will vanish like your dad's best jeans. Denim blue fading up to the sky.
And though you want him to last forever, you know he never will. And the patches make the goodbye harder still. Over young."
Goodbye, Dad. For now, we love you."
So this is a song that David wrote a few years ago that captures the incredible essence of the life that he provided for us at Lake Minnetonka. And it's perfect.
Once in a while, I would contradict Bob's advice. So when we were members at Wayzata and I could have been golfing and learning that, I was instead playing music. Our buddies shared a house and we practiced rock and roll every day. And when we...
Dave, that's good, but we gotta move on.
Okay. We were doing, our music training wasn't perfect, so this is what you get.
It's a fitting picture to have this on. So next up is Richard. Uncle Richard.
Bring that.
You have your harmonica? Richard, you bring your harmonica?
What'd you say?
He asked
Do you
you,
have a harmonica? Awesome.
of course he does.
Yep.
This is Dad's brother. Uncle Dick, Uncle Richard, Richard Jr. You want to say a few words up here, Dick?
Yeah,
You want a microphone?
Well, lectern or stand right there.
I think you might
Lectern
have
is-
solved the issue. This is better. Right.
well, first, David asked me to play Bob's favorite tune, so I'm gonna do that with this harmonica, and then I'll say a few words.
I can get this.
This is Ashokan Farewell. Ashokan Farewell was, as probably all of you saw something of Ken Burns' Civil War documentary. Ashokan Farewell was written by a guy who lived across the street from the Ashokan Reservoir in Massachusetts, which has a park around the side of it. And I think the Ungers, the guy that wrote the thing, had lived in what became the park, and so the song or the tune Ashokan Farewell was written when they had to leave the park. So in 1963, Bob and I were both living in New York. He was writing penny dreadful stories for $50 a piece for men's magazines. And I was working as associate editor of Printers Ink magazine, an advertising and marketing magazine. And we had enjoyed our more or less 4 years in New York, but we were both ready to try something else. And so we moved back to Minneapolis And I ended up going to medical school and spent my working life as a doctor. And Bob got a job with Ed Newver Associates, public relations firm. And after a year or so in that job, he got, one of his clients was Twin City Federal. And they asked him one day if he knew any good candidates for a marketing director. And he said, he thought, and he said, no, I guess I don't. And finally, they said, well, how about you? And he said, okay, not knowing anything about being a marketing director. And so while he was learning to be a marketing director, he told the bank that he needed a place in the garage to park his car because getting a parking spot was difficult around Minneapolis, and he was in and out all the time. So they gave him a parking spot, and everyone else's parking spot said Mr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so. His just said Evans. So after some small or medium period of time, he and a friend of his on Saturday went into the parking garage and found the parking spot of the guy that gave him the parking spot. It just said Evans. And it was, their parking spots were identified with a tin plaque with their name on it. So they went in there on Saturday with the tin snips and found his, and snipped it. So all that was left was his last name. And so I didn't hear a very elaborate version of this, but after a while, Bob was higher ranked than this guy. And I don't remember the details, but somehow or other, this guy ended up looking for a job somewhere else. So Bob had no idea that he was going to be doing what he ended up doing, or that he knew how to do any of this stuff. He just learned as he went along and turned out to be very good at it. So he and I, fought like cats and dogs as brothers, but most of the time we were best of friends. And we did a few pretty mean things to each other. One of the things that, I don't remember any of the things that I did, but one of the things that I remember that he did was I had made a bunch of stick model airplanes, World War II fighter planes mostly, balsa and tissue paper. And one day, and I had them hanging from threads from the ceiling of our bedroom. And one day he stayed home from school for some reason or other. And he got a hold of my BB gun and shot them all to pieces. They'd been out there for a long time. So anyhow, I might have done something nasty to get even with him, but I don't remember what. So anyhow, in 1963, we had both graduated from the University of Minnesota and were living in New York City. He was writing penny dreadfuls for Men's Magazine, and as I said, I was working as an associate editor of a magazine, and the trip to Minnesota turned out to be a big change of our lives, and ended up putting us where we ended up.
Any final things? We're running out of time.
So that's all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Dick.
Thank you, Dick.
Dave, we're gonna do a sing-along. Otherwise, ready?
So,
Lead us in the sing-along.
we invite everybody to sing one of Dad's favorite songs.
If you're at home and wherever you want.
So feel free to sing out as a group. Here we go. Want to invite anyone to say something about that, if you'd like?
But please be brief if you do. I call on Bill Cooper, if you have something to add. Bill Cooper, or one of the grandkids.
We will, but if someone else wants to.
Yeah,
Come on up, Lindsay.
Lindsay, yeah.
One time I was having trouble and my dad said, David, I'm your best friend. Don't worry about these other guys. And these are my best friends here. There you go.
Stand over by the lectern so the camera can see. And introduce yourself. And with the microphone close.
I'm Lindsay. I'm Brianna. I'm Brooke. Do you want to start? Okay. Well, it's hard to pick one thing, so I know we don't have that much time, but I feel like Dadia and Baba aren't really gone because everyone here reminds me of them in so many ways. I like Lindsay said, I feel like they're all really living on through all of us, and some of my favorite memories of Dadia were always when we would all be sitting around the table and he would start to tell us a story. Everyone would get really quiet and listen in on his stories, and it was so memorable to hear him. And now all of us together really, we love to tell stories and share art like Baba did, and hearing from all of you, the stories just live on through all of us and bring us closer together. Yeah.
Well, when I think of Dadia, I always think about the memories that always come to my mind are him bringing the entire family together. So whether that was at Maynard's with lunch, having all the brothers, all the grandkids, all the cousins, or if it was going on the boat to watch my dad sail in a race, or if we were all just sitting on the dock for sunset, swimming and getting blue paint on us from the ladder. And I just remember him always being a really strong foundation for our family. And I just think that he kind of summed up what our family, it means to be a part of our family, being together, supporting each other, being strong for each other when they need it. So we all loved him very, very much.
Yeah, I didn't phrase what I was saying very well, but I just think that like everything in our life is thanks to Baba and Dadia, and they have affected us all in so many different ways. Everything that we love and enjoy and do together, we have them to thank for that. So.
Absolutely beautiful girls. Well done. So we're going to close it out with one of Dad's favorite phrases, and Dave may have something to say about this. Vaya con Dios. And the song.
Dad and I used to say that to each other if we were going to be apart for any length of time. Vaya con Dios, go with God. And I know that Mom and Dad are with God now. And,
So one of the songs for the Better Than Nothing Dirt Band that they made famous at many occasions and for funerals included was this.
their band would play this at funerals, and it was very sweet. This is exactly what Ron was in there in his time off. His best buddy, Robert T. Smith on trumpet, his buddy on clarinet, another buddy on banjo and tuba. That was his band, just sounded just like that. Thank you all for being in Bob and Judy's lives, and thanks for coming today, and keep them in your hearts.
Vaya con Dios.
Love you, Dad.
Love you very much, Dad.
Love you, Dad, love you, Mom. Thanks, everybody.
Join us at Molly's Pub. Short walk, keep your car where it's parked. Molly's Pub on Main Street, about a block and a half that way. We have a table for 20 reserved.
Good luck, you guys. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, oh, that's nice. That's great.
Yep.
Yeah, I would like to introduce you to
Monday, 2 weeks.
Yeah. Oh, you do, yeah?
Busy. Yeah.
You did not.
You able to go to the? Yeah. We got the table reserved.
No. Yeah, it was. Oh.
Because there was another lady there.
Well.
You go over to the saloon.
I'm Sarah. I think we've met.
Yeah, I should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Overall sailors, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't do the lakeside farms.
Offshore. That's what I did.
Yes.
I couldn't do it anymore, you know.
Yeah.
You know, no, well, I've down there for many years before I. We bought a house 5 years ago. And
He is in our shop.
Jeannie still has a very nice little lake cottage in Maine.
While he was in France.
How about you?
Well, he came back here 2 years ago. He didn't have it. Yeah, he got his PhD finally.
But we came up here, Virgin Islands, we were there for 50 years. We lived down there for many years. I was still learning the place and the family came down. Things like that. I always worked on the water. And slowed down. Things change. So, changes, but now, we came up here, my brother was, he would have it and.
Turns out it's, she runs the Apple store.
Medical care.
Yeah. She's working on it.
I didn't like staying in the house, I sold.
How are your brothers?
I bought another boat for therapy, go back on the water. Yeah.
but he's still a very skilled musician. Yeah. And so he did, the,
Merritt Island.
Well,
None of us.
Thanks for, thanks for being here. Sarah was a caregiver for her mom and stepdad for
Patrick came up to
and
manage
gave a
some
lot
of
of
the business.
helpful insight.
You guys, you didn't need it, you had it.
Yeah, your encouragement to just show up and keep doing it was helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. She loved you too. Sarah's close
he
to her
spends a lot
sister.
of time,
Spent years sailing with us.
lived before they migrated.
It's a close family, you guys know, it's a close community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really glad. And she moved from Iowa to Sarasota.
My mom was here, yeah, my parents were. My mom bought her house just a few years after Bob and Joe got there. So, yeah, so
Yeah.
spent time there and here. Yeah. Where are you from? England? How long you been in
United States, 25 years, and Sarasota, 2 years, and like 2.5.
Nobody owns.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the-
Yeah. How'd you guys meet? Oh, you too. Well.
2/3 of us meet online.
That's so
Everybody else
nice.
worries about the-
Well, normally you see where the person is, and we looked on the map and we were a mile apart. It's like, okay, this maybe.
Well,
Yeah.
we just showed up at such a, you know, nice time.
Mom's greatest,
Yeah.
Judy's greatest joy in her final months was getting to know Gina and seeing us fall in love. She loved Gina. And, at bedtime, she'd always ask me, so, tell me about Gina. And grandma.
See that screen blank, just doing this, it's like, oh.
So Gina doesn't feel well, she's gonna
What did you
depart,
say?
but we'll see.
Did you get your cards?
Tomorrow.
Mince garlic. You can spin that in, it kills it.
The video.
And then you-
Yeah.
regular oil.
Again, it started.
No, Dave, you're just very consistent. Let's focus on what we are.
Get your oregano oil and you're gone.
So anyway, if you can join us later today or tomorrow.
So I told
Yeah.
a lot of people.
Well, you guys are an hour and a half apart from lunch anytime you want.
Oh, yeah.
We're
Meet in the middle.
Uh-huh.
No, we'd love to go and visit Vero Beach.
Plenty of room when she's there.
I all of a sudden find myself with a little more
Service, you know, we got dad loaded in the car and ready to go.
all
And
kinds of road
also.
trips and other things. So I gotta walk Gina into her car.
That's like, okay.
See you tomorrow.
So then we loaded
You know,
it
with the prayer,
in the sports
so,
car.
like, anyone in pretty quiet,
Yeah.
Put it in there, which is hard.
You showed up.
Wheelchair and all of a sudden he goes.
We'll do photos before.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like I recognize you.
Take a few to bring over.
Are all these easels theirs or?
Yeah, you can just leave those.
Okay, good to see you. This is Brooke. Daughter Brooke. Cousin Will. Yeah.
But she really loves it. She's been doing
This
a lot
is,
of
Bob's
pickleball, a lot of
sister's
running
son.
and hiking, so
Yeah.
she's very happy up
She
there.
did 500
Yeah.
years geology.
The other way over there?
Yeah.
Never been there, but it says it's just
Actually, like,
corner.
it's crazy,
Yeah.
because, my little brother looks like
Yeah.
he's far
You mean right now?
with my
Yeah.
dad.
Yeah.
Like the photos, you look at the photo from my
Yeah.
dad when he was my brother's age, and you
Yeah,
can't tell.
we
the
understand,
difference.
I just learned 2
And
weeks
you
ago,
have to like,
your mom,
my brother has freckles and the
Really
only
good
difference
mom.
you
Take
can
care
tell, but it's
nurtured
wow,
kindness
it's
with
Wow.
dad being
so,
They did good job.
a hard ass.
Yeah.
Look at
Apparently,
this,
your mom
Rob.
was,
Look at this.
Yeah.
I bow to you.
she nurtured the young